Jason Momoa recently had another meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran and is more excited than ever for his future at DC, so we need to go over exactly what that means. Meanwhile, Matt Reeves talks more about his The Batman spin-off, The Penguin. Mark Hamill talks about why he likely won't return to the role of Joker, and The Batman has been nominated for 3 Oscars, but should there have been more? Yes. All that and more in today's news roundup, guys, so hope you enjoy what we have to talk about today. There's quite a little bit to discuss, and I want to get into not only my thoughts, but your feedback on the whole Jason Momoa stuff. So let's get straight into it, but before we do, hit that like button. It really, helps out a lot to help catapult this video into that YouTube algorithm, and subscribe, because so many of you aren't subscribed, and you actually come back quite often, so help me get to that road of 200k. Might be a while away, but you guys can help out a little bit there. So, Momoa. This has been quite the saga so far. We've had this whole thing with the DC Universe and speculation for quite some time. It's been going for a minute, ever since James Gunn and Peter Safran came in after the end of Black Adam. Wires got crossed there, but we've also been having more and more updates and ambiguity with a lot of clarity needed, even though I'm not sure we're going to get it at these DC January reveals. Just want to put a disclaimer out. If you're watching this by the time they actually drop this slate and there's more clarification on Jason Momoa's role, well, compare notes to what I was thinking. That's all I can say. But I still definitely want to talk about it. And I'm a little bit late to the video that Jason Momoa uploaded. I'm going to play that for you right now.
Was it 4 years ago? I had the Jeep out front? Yeah. No, I don't want you. I had it 4 years ago. I was screaming, wasn't I? Yeah. Screaming when I left Warner Brothers. Right? Everyone's in the meeting. 4 years again. It's a mystery, baby. We got, I got some really good news. Great news with Warner Brothers. Amazing. Wish I could tell you, but here it is. Peter, I love you. James, I love you. David. Okay. Mwah. To the future, to the future. Baby! Picture me rolling.
So as you can tell, this video seems familiar. It's very familiar to the video we had a couple of months back where Momoa was in very similar spirits, very excited, thanking James Gunn and literally screaming with joy.
The greatest news, some of the greatest news in my life just happened. I can't say anything about it. Ah!
And everyone was thinking that it could be to do with Lobo. And that is because, of course, well, not only has there been insane hints towards that, I think even around that time as well, shortly before James Gunn came into the position of co-head of DC Studios, and quite literally his first post about it on one of the social medias was the caption of "Glad to be here," with a literal picture of Lobo. The head of DC Studios wouldn't post something like that unless Lobo wasn't to be in his new slate in some way, shape, or form. Whether that's a DC movie, a DCU connected to the canon of that cinematic universe TV show, or maybe a role in a movie. And we'll talk more about that last one in a theory in just a second. So with that old video now combining with seemingly Momoa having another meeting and saying that there's good news, great news, saying Peter Safran is amazing, saying that he loves James Gunn, even mentioning David's name, which is David Zaslav, and tagging the video WB and DC, there's quite a bit of discussion going on in the public town square of the DC fandom. Now, everyone is thinking, I think, for the most part, that this is Lobo, but where things get a little bit confusing for people, and why I hope we get some kind of clarity on the whole DCEU continuing and DCU kicking off. Will he be playing Aquaman? But will he be playing Aquaman in this new DC universe with a new Superman whilst playing Lobo? But there could be another route it could go down. But the thing that made this even more confusing for fans is the fact that we do have Aquaman 2 coming out, of course, but that's not really unusual. We've got other DCEU movies coming out as well, like the Flash movie, Blue Beetle, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, and everything like that. So, you know, of course, they're going to finish that slate before we get into James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DCU. Well, when talking to Variety very recently, after that video that Momoa posted online line about his excitement in that recent meeting. They asked him, what was your meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran like? And he said, it was very, very wonderful. I'm in the house of Warner Brothers and they're liking a lot of stuff that I'm doing, and we've got a lot of good things coming. But he goes on to say, because he can clearly read the room, he knows what the internet is saying, and he knows what they've been saying ever since we had that first video of him freaking out in his house about the initial meeting. So he goes on to say, you know, I'll always be Aquaman. Again, he's reading the room like people have been talking about this for the past couple of months. You know, I'll always be Aquaman. The rumors are, you know, a bit of ... there. I'll always be Aquaman. Ain't anyone coming in there and taking shit. And then there might be other characters too. So I can play other things too. I can be funny and savage and charming once in a while. Now, those last words, I don't know about you, funny, savage, and a bit charming could definitely describe the very formidable Lobo. So again, this is going to give everyone all kinds of different opinions, because even though he says, you know, I'll always be Aquaman, yet he's also saying he can play other characters too. The theory that people have been saying for a while, he will still be Aquaman, but also playing Lobo, could be true. And I'm not discounting that, right? He could be. And that is where the theory comes in of what is going on and how this new DCU is being orchestrated, possibly alongside the old DCEU. So in the past couple of months, there's been a theory that has been going around social media. I've had it mentioned to me. Initially, I was like, I don't know about that. But then, you know, after thinking about it a little bit more, I talked about it on Twitter, and I was like, well, I suppose they could do this whilst the new DCU cooks in the background, because again, no matter how much some people want to believe that they could fast track the new Superman movie, because let's hypothetically say that is the first movie in this new DCU, the James Gunn written Superman movie, it is probably still 2 to 3 years away. So let's just, for example's sake, say it's that frame of time. You could have these old DCEU movies, and I say old, but really they're still having yet to release, like Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, the Flash movie. You could have those carry on, maybe even with a new installment. I don't know what way they would do it. Maybe they are going to be a follow-up with another Aquaman after Aquaman 2. Maybe there's going to be a final Shazam movie. I'm not saying this is how it's going to be, but when you take into account that the new DC universe is going to be a little while away from now, they could be, one theory is that he's cooking up his Lobo role, and we'll talk about what that could be in just a second, for that new DC universe with the new DCU Superman, the new DCU movie, and all the slate for the next 8 to 10 years, of which we're only hearing a bit of slate 1 any day now, or maybe it's already happened by the time I'm talking about this video. But there could be some room for him to still be Aquaman in the DCEU, which, you know, maybe they're thinking maybe we may as well make some money with that until we're ready to kind of close it off, which, you know, makes sense in a way of speaking. But then there's like theory 2, where the soft reboot happens, and as what's been reported by major trades, it's a broad reset but not a blanket reset. So that means major changes, but it's not going to be a blanket reset where you completely rip the, you know, the tablecloth off and put a whole new one on there. So that would entail, if that report was true, not saying it isn't, major trades get things wrong all the time, but also things right, that the DCEU characters could very well continue on selectively, obviously, in this new DCU. For example, we don't have Henry Cavill as Superman anymore, but Momoa could still be playing Aquaman. Zachary Levi could still be playing Shazam. Maybe even Charlotte Marduena could still be playing Blue Beetle. It's just some kind of event, some kind of something could merge them into this new DC universe, in where we literally have a new Superman, and they could use the ending of the Flash movie for that, even though it was never written or planned for that. The Flash is a very timey-wimey character, in where things change in the timeline. They could still use the original end of that movie and just be like, oh, now Superman is younger. Do you know what I mean? And Aquaman looks the same, but for some reason there's another guy called Lobo, even with makeup and possibly prosthetics, Oh, it kind of looks like Momoa / Aquaman as well. I don't know. This is what I mean. We need that clarity. So let me know what you think they're doing there before we talk about Lobo's actual appearance and how that could be implemented in the new DCU. Do you think the DCEU is going to kind of phase out maybe with a couple of greenlit new sequels for maybe Aquaman whilst we cook up the next couple of years or so to the new DCU first movie, possibly being Superman? Or do you think we are getting some selective characters from the DCEU to carry on in this universe, even if that meant Jason Momoa still playing Aquaman in the new DCU alongside the new younger casted Superman and playing Lobo? We don't know, but how can Lobo be involved in this universe? Is it going to be his own DCU movie? Is it going to be his own DCU TV show? Because don't forget, we are getting DCU, so they're connected to the cinematic movies, TV shows as well. So we could have a Lobo miniseries. Or could it be a large role in an existing movie? Now, there is one that is being talked about quite a bit with the latter, and that is maybe the antagonist for the Superman movie written by James Gunn, likely going to be directed by James Gunn as well. And before anyone says it, Lobo isn't a straight up villain. I know that. I know, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't be hired to take out Superman, and while he's fulfilling his contract and everything like that, they come to blows and it becomes quite an awesome movie that way, with it maybe ending with Lobo kind of and Superman walking away from each other. And I actually really like this pitch because it doesn't mean Lobo's story would end there. He could go off into his own movie after that, a spin-off movie from his appearance in Superman, again, all played by Jason Momoa. But it could also serve for like great world building because again, Superman in this universe is not an origin story that's been explicitly stated by James Gunn. However, he is going to be younger. Now, in this new DC universe, this new cinematic universe, I think they're going to hit the ground running across the whole board. For an example, I don't think there's going to be an origin event with hardly any of the characters that we know and love. Maybe for some newer characters that haven't seen the screen, such as, I don't know, like Booster Gold or something like that. But we don't need that with Batman, Superman. Again, not an origin story. We've had that stated. Batman could be 7-8 years into his career already and still be 36, so a new, younger casting. Wonder Woman could still be active and out there. It wouldn't necessarily be origins. And an example of this is the world as well. So for example, the Flash TV show on the CW. You had this event known as the Particle Accelerator event where it literally birthed metahumans in Central City, and then a bunch of metahumans or people started getting powers. So, you know, there was a reason for why there was powered people. But in this universe, I think James Gunn is going to already start with a living, breathing DC universe. There's already going to be characters out there. There's already going to be crimes committed by metahumans. There's already going to be a Lex Luthor who might not have brushed up against Superman so much, but there's going to be a Batman in Gotham who's already been operating for 5 to 7 years. There's already going to be a Lobo out there in space who's maybe come to Earth for some time and maybe gets contracted to take out Superman. This kind of thing. It's already living and breathing. We don't need to start from the ground up and it's like, oh, there's a metahuman over there. The first one ever seen. Do you know what I mean? So with that being said, with the Superman movie and maybe Lobo's appearance, the reason why I like this theory so much is if Superman isn't an origin story, right? I think he's already been out there saving people, really thinking quick on your feet kind of stuff, which is something so great about Superman. He is very overpowered, but the kind of stuff he might have to prevent sometimes, as seen in Superman and Lois, season 2, episode 1 maybe, if I remember, is a great example. There's a nuclear reactor like meltdown, and you need to like think, okay, if I freeze that over there, and maybe if I heat vision that over there, it should stabilize that enough, and now I need to go do this. He needs to like think about multiple things at once. I think he's been doing all of that. I think he's been saving buses to submarines or whatever. Maybe he's come up against a metahuman or two, but he's not come up against Brainiac. He's not come up against Doomsday. He's not come up against Lex Luthor in like a war suit or something to that extent yet. The same maybe goes for Bizarro, even though I think Bizarro could be a good early villain as well. I don't think he's necessarily gone up against any of his major life-threatening rogues gallery. But Lobo, again, not being a straight-up villain, but maybe being hired to take out Superman. This could be a great threat for Superman to tackle in his first movie. Also, it would lead to the question of, in the world building of this new DC universe and for future story for this Superman, who hired Lobo to do this? That is another very interesting factor. But before we even get to that third act of the film where maybe that gets revealed, you have a lot of, Supermaning, going out there. James Gunn will show all that stuff, maybe some of his reporting life, this, that, and the other. But given the fact that Superman's made a name for himself in the world, maybe Lex Luthor is revealed to be the one who hired him eventually and is the one who has sent Lobo, and Lobo most certainly being up for the job, trying to take him out. So I think that could be like a really good role, and I do think Jason Momoa would still be like super hyped about being a major supporting role in something like even a Superman movie, and not necessarily his own movie to begin with, because being a Superman villain in a Superman movie is still a very big badge of honor to wear. Plus, as I said, I don't think it would end there for his character, with whatever reconciliation that would happen at the end of that movie. Maybe they punch the crap out of each other. Maybe Superman learns, okay, why did Luthor send this guy after me, and this, that, and the other. Lobo could go off into his own projects after that. But that is just one theory. I do need to make that clear. Lobo could be announced to have his own DCU TV show or his own DC movie. It might not remotely even be in the Superman movie. But personally, I love the idea of introducing Jason Momoa's Lobo as the first threat to this, like the first major trial and tribulation this new younger Superman is going to face off against before he gets to Brainiac, before he gets to Bizarro, before he gets to whoever in his own proper rogues gallery. Lobo is a bit more, not so black and white villain. It is obviously a lot more of a gray area. Plus, it could branch out into all kinds of other story. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know what your preference would be for the DCU Lobo's first entry. And let me know if you think that Momoa is even going to be Lobo. I think it most certainly is going to be the case. It's just that maybe there's a new, slightly ambiguous thing going on with, okay, he's always going to be Aquaman as well, as he said himself. So then that leads me to ask you again the question of, do you think that means he's going to be playing Aquaman in Aquaman 3? And do you think that means the DCEU is going to greenlight new movies as it phases out, as DC Studios gets closer to their new universe? Or do you want to take that and put the idea of old DCEU characters like Momoa's Arthur Curry Aquaman transitioning into the new DCU, but some characters and castings not, such as Henry Cavill's Superman? Alright, so up next is the Oscars. We've now got the Oscar nominations, right? And I'm gonna try and sound not biased here. Like, truly, I know I'm a big fan of the Batverse, Matt Reeves' Batverse, right? But the Oscars, you know, they're kind of famous. It's a weird thing with the nominations for comic book movies. You know, we've had Best Actors before, and I would say that the Oscars tend to lean more towards nominations in other areas like cinematography, makeup, this, that, and the other, rather than the acting or supporting roles side of things. And I wanted to talk about the Batman very briefly, because we've just got 3 new nominations for the Batman with regards to the Oscars for Best Sound, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and Best Visual Effects. The interesting thing about that is I'm seeing a lot of people online saying that the Batman was snubbed with regards to Oscar nominations for cinematography and score. And I have to say, I really do have to say that I do agree with that. I do think no matter what you think about the Batman, where you think it was too slow or the plot was great, but then maybe it dropped off at the last act, this, that, and the other, or maybe it didn't deserve, you know, Best Actor nomination, whatever, right? But as far as Greg Fraser's cinematography and Michael Giacchino's score, that is pretty astounding to me that they didn't even get nominated, or the Batman didn't even get nominated for that. I do have to make that known. I'm trying to remove my bias, and that's what I mean by objective. When I say objective, I mean just without my own personal bias for the Batman. And the cinematography of the Batman was just very, 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 very well done by Greg Fraser. He's a great cinematographer anyway across his filmography. You should know what I mean. And Michael Giacchino, Jesus, even people who weren't massive fans of the Batman had that one thing to say about the score and how it was incredible. So I think for me, you know, even when I look at the other nominations, it's just kind of surprising to me that it didn't even get nominated. You know, I'm not saying it would have won. I'm just saying, wow, no nomination for Giacchino's score for the Batman. That is pretty shocking to me. I do think it was deserved for a nomination. And the cinematography, I do agree as well. I know I keep saying the same thing here, but I do think, you know, best sound, best makeup and hairstyling, and best visual effects, like, I understand in a way, but it's like, really? Over that of the cinematography and over that of the score / the soundtrack? Let me know your thoughts on that. Those are mine, but do you think that over best sound, best makeup and hairstyling, best visual effects, of which has already been nominated, that it should have been nominated in the list of nominees for best cinematography and Best Score. Meanwhile, in the Batverse side of news, we have Matt Reeves talk to fandom.com about the Cloverfield 15th anniversary, but he also had a couple of things to say about the Penguin, so I just wanted to chuck this in here for any enthusiasts who just want to know the latest about what has been said. So Matt Reeves said about Colin Farrell that he is such a genius. He's such a wonderful, soulful, lovely person, and I love working with him. And I remember it was this thing where when we were doing the movie, he was only in a certain part of the movie, but it was just so amazing. And at the beginning, he was like, I don't want that many scenes. And then as we were doing it, he was having such fun. He goes, can there be more scenes? And I was like, well, let me see what else. But we only had so much space within the movie. And that's just interesting to know that Colin Farrell, I guess, was more than happy to do Oz Cobblepot, but initially was like, you know, I don't want that many scenes. But as he was in the role, as he was in the prosthetics, he was having so much fun. He literally requested more scenes. So no wonder he was over the moon and more than up for doing a spin-off, The Penguin series, in where he's doing 8 episodes. So we're literally going to get 6 to 8 hours of screen time of Oz Cobblepot. Fandom.com go on to say that led to the spin-off series, and Reeves said they were excited by the idea of getting to do the series and really sort of dive into the depths of who this character is and look at that moment where it's kind of his Scarface moment. The moment where everyone's underestimated him. He's got to reach for power in Gotham. Lauren LaFranc, who wrote it and who's the showrunner, she's so wonderful. She dug into the character. I kept showing her the movie as she was working on the script before the movie was ever done. So the idea of us getting to go back in with Colin is super exciting. He's so incredible in the Banshees of Inisherin. He's just an amazing actor. It's amazing because he's so different in Banshees, but what he has beautifully, even as Penguin, as Oz, is there is this level of vulnerability that he plays that is such a beautiful part of his soul, and he always finds this way to project into the characters, and I just think he's really just very special. But more than anything, I just love him as a person. So yeah, not too much to say there, but just wanted to chuck that in there with regards to the Penguin. I can't wait to see it because that's one thing about people, and that's one thing of where we're at in the Batverse with this character, where we're at in Oz's career, if you will, is that everyone has underestimated him. As Falcone said, he's just a gimp in a suit, but it's just like, oh boy, you have no idea. And through that underestimation, through that overconfidence of other people, Oz will rise to Kingpin status. And we're going to see that play out in the Penguin series, which is starting filming just next month. Now, lastly, guys, with regards to Mark Hamill and his Joker roles, it's a bit of sad news, but understandable news. So it's being said out there that Hamill doubts whether he'll ever take up the Joker mantle again without Conroy there to trade lines with. It was heading that way anyway, he says. They would call and say, they want you to do the Joker. And my only question was, is Kevin Batman? If they said yes, I would say, I'm in. We were like partners. We were like Laurel and Hardy. Without Kevin there doesn't seem to be a Batman for me. Which is, you know, very sad because I think we would all love to see Mark Hamill play the Joker again. That's just needless to say. But the reasoning behind why he feels like he isn't capable of playing the Joker anymore without lines to trade with Kevin Conroy, it is completely an understandable reason. It's just such a tragedy overall, like without going over the sad news of Kevin Conroy again, but it almost reflects the story material as well. Like even for the Joker character, Joker has entered a catatonic state before without his Batman in Gotham City. He kind of has no purpose to be that person anymore. So it's almost weird in the sense that Mark Hamill, again, not weird, but understanding, feels like he has no purpose to play the Joker anymore without his Batman, because his Batman is no longer around. But having said that, we do have one more performance with Kevin Conroy for any video gamers out there. I know a lot of you are aware of this, and I don't know how much of Batman we'll get in this game, but in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, essentially the Justice League have been taken over some way or another. They seem corrupt in some way, so the Suicide Squad have been tasked to take out the Justice League, and we have Kevin Conroy playing Batman, and it's just wild to think that Harley, King Shark, and Captain Boomerang and whoever have to take out corrupted Flash, Superman, Batman. I don't know how they're going to do it, but the fact that we're going to see Kevin Conroy in that role again, because the lines were obviously recorded quite a while ago, is going to be a special experience. So I can't wait to see that. Maybe I'll stream it on the channel for anyone interested. That would be a great time to share with everyone. But let me know what you think about what Mark Hamill said. And I suppose that ends today's video in general. Let me know what you thought about all the stories we had to talk about in today's video. Can't wait to hear your takes, because with a couple of the stories that there's quite a few different opinions to have, whether it's from Lobo, should it be a solo DCU TV show, DC movie? What about the Oscar nominations for the Batman? Do you agree with them, or do you think no? But like, I didn't even like the Batman that much, but that cinematography was great, or like that score should have at least been nominated. Or do you think no, nah, like the 3 best hair and makeup and whatnot was fine enough? Again, lots to talk about. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please give it a like, especially if you got this far. But that is absolutely everything, so I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow people of DC in the next video. Goodbye.